William Walker Atkinson's The New Psychology, His Message, Principles, and Practice. Chapter 9 was Mental Paths. This is Chapter 10, Thought and Character. The old proverb, "As a man thinketh, so is he," has been pressed into active service of late, owing to the increase of interest in the various branches of the new psychology under its many names and guises. The new psychology is indeed the foundation principle of many different schools, cults, creeds, and organizations, some of which would disown the relationship. It is passed as truth, consequently, that a man's character, disposition, activities, and general personality are dependent in some mystic way with the character of his thoughts. Many interesting, unique, and sometimes weird theories have been advanced to account for this fact, but to students of the new psychology, the phenomenon is seen to rest upon a purely scientific basis, in no way connected with mysticism or strange dogmas. The working out of the "as a man thinketh" idea is simply a matter of applied idealism. And applied idealism is closely connected with the phenomena of the subconscious region of mentality. A man is not so much the result of what he thinks, as of what he feels. Character building depends far more upon the feeling and emotional side of one's nature than upon the purely intellectual and rational process of the mind. A man may think continually upon mathematics or some other abstract subject, but he does not become a mathematical problem or an abstract entity. These thoughts have an effect upon his character only so far as they serve to inhibit or neutralize his capacity for feeling or manifesting emotion. As pure thought, they have no formative power. But select any man who is interested in anything that arouses his desires, feelings, emotions, or any other mental faculties having a close relationship to the subconscious region of his mind, and you will find him molding a character in accordance with those desires, feelings, or emotions. It is all a matter of supplying the subconscious mentality with a certain kind of impressions. It is frequently said, and truly, that a man grows to resemble his ideals. But this only supports the contention we have just made. A man's ideals are the things he loves, the opposites of the things he hates. And both love and hate are matters belonging to the emotional and feeling side of his mentality, not to the intellectual side. His ideals are bound up with his feelings, emotions, desires. He may not be able to explain them intellectually, particularly if he has not acquired the art of using his intellectual faculties. Persons of very small intellectual power have strong tendencies, desires, and ideals, as well as their brothers who have developed the intellect. Even the man who finds a keen pleasure in exercising his intellect, who feels the joy of pure reason, finds the feeling or desire the motive power. The intellect is a cold thing, a machine that performs the work set for it by one's desires or necessities, the latter manifesting as feelings. And so, at the last, it will be seen that a man's ideals depends upon his likes and dislikes, feelings and emotions. And the ideal held by one imparts interest in all that concerns or relates to it. And interest is the strong motive of attention. And attention is the phonographic needle of the mind that makes the impressions upon the subconscious records. And so, you see, one's ideals serve to set into activity the cause of chain and effect that results in storing away in his mind numerous clear and deep impressions that manifest a marked effect upon his character. By the constant use of these impressions, he builds the mental paths over which he travels often. And the oftener he travels these mental paths, the more set does his character become. And so in the end, we may see the truth of that axiom of the new psychology: a man grows to resemble the thing he loves. Tell us what a man loves, and we will tell you what the man is. And so, as a man loveth, so is he. Another axiom of the new psychology, two axioms in fact, twin axioms, here they are. 1. Feelings manifest in action. 2. A man follows the line of his strongest interest. These two axioms work together. It is one of the fundamental ideas of the new psychology that mental states, particularly the states of desires, feelings, and emotions, manifest themselves in outward activity. This fact is brought out in every branch of the teachings. Professor William James, lays great stress upon this truth of psychology. He says, all consciousness is motor, and we may say that every possible feeling produces a movement, and that the movement is a movement of the entire organism, and of each and all its parts. The same authority goes still further when he says, I now proceed to urge the vital point of my whole theory, which is this. If we fancy some strong emotion, and then try to abstract from our consciousness of it all the feelings of its bodily symptoms, we find that we have nothing left behind. In other words, that there is always a physical and outward manifestation arising from an inward mental state. This being so, we can readily see why our actions tend to fall into the mold or pattern created by our feelings. Excuse me. We are constantly acting, usually unconsciously, in accordance with our predominant desires, likes or dislikes, which arise from feelings. It is only when we are forced to make a new decision that the matter rises to the field of consciousness. And even then, we are influenced by our feelings, tempered by our judgment. Our physical lives are regulated by our mental states, and our mental states are largely what we make them. And so we might add, as a man feels, so does he. As a man feels, so does he. And when we realize that our feelings largely depend upon our control or lack of control of the material taken into our subconscious mentality, then do we begin to see why the new psychology lays so much stress upon the mastery of the subconscious. The materials of our feelings are all taken from our subconscious storehouse, and what we put in there comes out in the shape of feelings and emotions, and these in turn take form in action. And so each day we act in accordance with what we have placed in our subconsciousness, or else have allowed others to place in there for us. The second of these two axioms is, a man follows the lines of his strongest interest. This should awaken every individual to the realization of the importance of beginning the practice of placing his ego on the throne of his mentality and choosing intelligently the objects of his interest. The majority of persons follow the line of the least resistance in this respect, and allow themselves to become interested in many things regardless of the importance of those things to their well-being. To many persons, the suggestion that they have the power to select the objects of their interest seems absurd and provocative of laughter. They are so accustomed to regard interest, feelings, desires, and emotions as things beyond their control, that they make no attempt to exercise a voluntary control over them. It is true that these mental states do not spring from pure intellectual effort, for they spring from the depths of the subconscious mentality unbidden, in most cases. But the proven facts of the new psychology show us plainly that the ego may assume control of these involuntary mental states, and either encourage and develop them, or else restrain or inhibit them entirely. Just as the will may assume control of certain involuntary muscles of the body, so may the ego assume control of its entire mental kingdom and mold, and build, and change, and improve every department of its mental workshop. By concentration and attention, interest may be directed to and held upon certain things, and removed and kept away from other things. Interest kindles desire, and lack of interest causes desire to die. And interest results from attention, and may be controlled by the will. And the will is the chief instrument of the ego. By using the reasoning and judicial faculties of the mind in the matter of right selection of objects of interest, the positive qualities and objects may be selected in preference to the negative ones. And this being done, we are well started on our way toward character building, mastery, and power. Interest in a subject or object, which at first seems to be interesting, may be acquired and developed by selecting the most attractive or least repulsive detail, item, or part of the thing, ignoring for the time being the other parts, and acquainting oneself thoroughly with its features, characteristics, and qualities. If one will but use the will in the matter of focusing the attention upon an uninteresting object or subject for a time, there will arise features or aspects of interest, which in turn will lead to others. Then other parts of the same thing may be taken up in the same way, and so on. Lack of interest in a thing, as a rule, arises from either lack of acquaintance with the inwardness of the thing, or else from over-attention to it, which has produced weariness and a desire for change. In the first case, the remedy is a better acquaintance, and in the second, a restful change of attention to something else, after which a new interest will spring up. If one wishes to destroy, restrain, or inhibit an undue interest in a subject or object that is considered not conducive to the well-being of the individual, the rule of the new psychology is to concentrate the attention and interest upon a subject or object diametrically opposed to the first one. It will be found that the new interest will inhibit or neutralize the old one. And this process is much easier than that of forcibly killing out the old interest by the use of the will. Concentrate on the opposite is the rule of the new psychology when one wishes to restrain, inhibit, or destroy a mental condition in oneself. Above all, do not make the mistake of regarding your feelings, emotions, or interest as you. Remember always that you, the real you, are the I, the ego, the master of all internal mental states and conditions, whose weapon and trusty instrument is the will. Chapter 11 will be emotion.